This story is very meaningful. Everyone should hear it. Listen to Brian tell the story. My name is Ethan Carver. I'm 35 years old, a senior software engineer at a big tech company on the West Coast. I've got a decent salary, a cozy apartment in San Francisco with a view of the bay, and enough investments to feel secure about the future. From the outside, it looks like I've made it, like I'm living the American dream. But 3 days ago, everything I'd built started to tremble. My phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in 17 years, my father's. His voice, older and edged with panic, cut through the line like a knife. "Ethan, we need to talk about Sophie. It can't wait." I stood there in my kitchen, coffee cup in hand, frozen. After 17 years of silence, after they'd kicked me out at 18 with $500 and a weekend to leave, they were back. And they wanted my help. My stomach twisted, half rage, half dread, as memories I'd buried clawed their way up. I wanted to hang up, but something about Sophie, my 13-year-old sister I barely knew, kept me on the line. I grew up in a modest house on the outskirts of Sacramento. My dad, Tom, sold real estate. Nothing flashy, but enough to keep us comfortable. He'd come home in his faded blazer, smelling of coffee and ink, tossing his briefcase on the counter with a tired grunt. My mom, Linda, taught high school English, always with a stack of papers to grade, her glasses slipping down her nose as she scribbled red marks late into the night. We weren't poor, but you'd never know it from how they treated me. Before I was born, they'd spent years trying for a girl, fertility clinics, whispered arguments behind closed doors, calendars marked with hope and disappointment. When I came along, a boy, they didn't hide their letdown. I was maybe 5 the first time I heard Dad call me the spare at a family barbecue, laughing like it was a punchline while relatives shifted uncomfortably in their lawn chairs. Mom would nod along, her smile tight, saying things like, "We'll get it right next time," as if I was a rough draft they could crumple up and toss out. I'd sit there picking at my hot dog, the ketchup smearing on my fingers, feeling like I took up too much space just by breathing their air. The backyard that day was loud, Uncle Rick flipping burgers, cousins chasing each other with water guns, but I felt invisible. Aunt Carol, Mom's younger sister, was there too. She was a nurse, broad-shouldered with a booming laugh, always wearing scrubs even on her days off. She caught my eye across the picnic table and winked, like she knew. "Hey, Ethan," she called, sliding me an extra soda. "Don't listen to your dad's nonsense. You're a good kid." I clutched the cold can, managing a small smile, but Dad overheard. "He's fine, Carol," he said, waving a spatula. "Just not what we ordered, you know." The adults chuckled awkwardly, and I stared at the grass, cheeks burning. Carol shot me another look, pity mixed with frustration, but didn't push it. She was the only one who ever tried to bridge that gap, but even she couldn't change them. School wasn't much better at first. I was quiet, skinny, the kid with secondhand sneakers and a backpack patched with duct tape. Kids like Bobby Tran noticed. He was a loudmouth in my 3rd grade class, all freckles and swagger, who'd shove me on the playground and snicker. "What's wrong, Spare? Mommy and Daddy don't want you?" I'd clench my fists but never swung. I knew I'd lose. Instead, I'd retreat to the library at recess, flipping through books I didn't understand just to avoid him. Mrs. Ellis, the librarian, took me under her wing. She was old, with gray curls and a voice like warm honey. "You're a thinker, Ethan," she'd say, slipping me a dog-eared copy of a science fiction novel. "Don't let the loud ones dim your light." I'd hide those books under my bed, reading by flashlight after Mom and Dad went to sleep, their muffled voices drifting through the walls about next steps and one more try. By middle school, I found computers. The lab at Lincoln Junior High had these ancient machines, big beige boxes that whirred and flickered. I'd sneak in during lunch, teaching myself BASIC from online forums I printed out at the public library. The keys clacked under my fingers, and for once, I felt in control. Mr. Harris, my 8th grade computer science teacher, caught me one day. He was lean, with wire-rimmed glasses, and a habit of tapping his pen when he talked. "What's this?" he asked, peering at my screen, a clumsy maze game I'd coded. I braced for a lecture, but he grinned. "Not bad, Carver. Keep going. Stay after school if you want. I'll unlock the lab." I did, every day, losing myself in loops and variables until the janitor kicked me out. "You're gonna do big things," Harris told me once, handing me a floppy disk with extra tutorials. I clung to that like a lifeline. Home didn't care. I'd rush in, breathless, to show Mom a program I'd spent weeks on, a little spaceship dodging asteroids. She'd glance up from her grating, glasses fogged with fatigue. "That's nice, Ethan. Did I tell you we've got an appointment with Dr. Miller tomorrow? New treatment. Dad was worse. He'd be sprawled on the couch, football blaring, barely grunting when I tried to explain. Good for you, bud, he'd mutter, eyes glued to the screen. I stopped showing them after a while, locking my victories in my chest where they couldn't touch them. Then Sophie came. I was 15, a sophomore, when Mom waddled into the living room one night, glowing. It's a girl, she whispered, clutching Dad's hand. He whooped, actually hugged me for once, brief, awkward, before they started planning. 9 months later, Sophie arrived, tiny and screaming, and the house flipped upside down. Pink balloons floated in the entryway. Relatives streamed in with gifts. I stood by the stairs holding a soda gone flat, watching Mom cradle her like she was gold. Dad kept saying our princess to anyone who'd listen. I didn't hate her. How could I? But the shift hit like a freight train. They stopped seeing me altogether. Sophie got everything. Her nursery took over the guest room. My stuff got shoved into corners. I'd hear Mom singing lullabies through the wall, Dad cooing like I'd never heard. Meanwhile, I'd microwave leftovers alone, their laughter echoing from her room. My junior year, I won that coding competition, state level, a scholarship, and a trophy. I raced home, heart hammering, thinking this might matter. Dad was on the rug with Sophie, stacking blocks. 3 whole blocks, he cheered as she giggled. Mom snapped pictures. I stood there, trophy in hand, voice trembling. I won today, at state. Dad glanced up. Hey, good job. Mom nodded. That's great, honey. Then back to Sophie. That night they threw her a party. Cake, streamers, for those damn blocks. I ate my slice in my room, the trophy cold against my knee, swearing I'd get out. I started freelancing then. Simple websites for local shops, $50 a pop. I hid the cash in an old sock, then a bank account they didn't know about. By 18, I had $3,000, a gut feeling whispering I'd need it. My birthday proved it. No cake, no happy 18th. They sat me down, faces stern. Ethan, Dad said, folding his arms. Sophie needs your room. Play area, study space. She's growing fast. I stared, pulse racing. Wait, what? I need time to... Mom interrupted. You're an adult now. You've had years to get ready. Dad slid me an envelope. $500, wrinkled 20s and 10s. Startup money, he said. Sunday's your deadline. It was Tuesday. I argued, voice cracking. I've got nowhere to go. I need a plan. Dad cut me off. You'll figure it out. You always do. Mom just looked away. I packed that night, hands shaking, laptop, clothes, my cash, cramming it into my backpack and trash bags. Sophie toddled to my door, Bunny in her arms. Where you going, Ethan? She lisped, eyes wide. I knelt, throat tight. Just a trip, Soph. Be good, okay? She nodded, clueless, as I hauled my life out the door. Mom watched from the kitchen, silent. Dad didn't come out. The lock clicked, and I was gone. Those first years broke me. I crashed with Jake, his mom, Maria, a short, fierce woman who cooked tamales, let me stay months, slipping me plates when Jake wasn't looking. Your family, mijo, she'd say, patting my cheek, her hands warm from the stove. The smell of corn masa and chili would fill their cramped apartment, a lifeline when I'd stumble in from a construction shift, dust caked on my skin. But I couldn't lean on them forever. Jake's dad, Miguel, started dropping hints, clearing his throat over dinner about grown men standing on their own. He was a quiet guy, a mechanic with oil-stained fingers, and I got it. I was a guest who'd overstayed, so I'd nod, shovel down my food, and crash on their lumpy couch, staring at the ceiling, plotting my next move. I worked whatever I could find. Construction days were brutal, hauling lumber under a Sacramento sun that baked my neck red, splinters stabbing my palms till they bled. The foreman, Tony, a stocky guy with a permanent scowl, barked orders like we were dogs. Move it, Carver, you're not here to daydream, he'd yell, and I'd grit my teeth, lugging beams till my shoulders screamed. Nights, I'd pull shifts at 7-Eleven, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, dodging drunks who'd stumble in at 2 a.m., demanding beer. One guy, a regular I called Whiskey Joe, wild beard, wilder eyes, tried to swipe a bottle once. I grabbed his wrist, heart pounding. Pay or leave, I said, voice steadier than I felt. He cursed me out but backed off, and I exhaled, hands shaking behind the counter. Freelance gigs filled the gaps, coding basic websites for mom-and-pop shops, $50 here, $20 there, wired to my secret account through a library computer. Between jobs, I'd hole up in the downtown library, my backpack a pillow on a hard chair, the hum of it my only comfort. I'd code on their ancient PCs till security, usually Ms. Garcia, a stern woman with a buzz cut, tapped my shoulder. "Closing time, kid," she'd say, not unkindly. I'd nod, pack up, and shuffle out into the night, stomach growling. I ate cheap, ramen packets boiled on a hot plate I'd scavenged, stale bread from day-old bins, sometimes nothing but tap water when the cash ran dry. Hunger gnawed my gut like a living thing, a sharp ache that kept me awake, curled in a ball. Winter hit hard. Sacramento's damp cold seeped into my bones. I'd count coins from my pocket, choosing between a burger or a night in a Fleabag motel off I-80. Some nights I picked wrong and slept in my beat-up Civic, a rust bucket Jake's cousin Diego handed me when he upgraded. Frost coated the windows. I'd wake with my breath fogging, teeth chattering, wrapping my jacket tighter. Diego was a wiry guy, all tattoos and quick grins, who ran a chop shop on the edge of town. "She's yours, man," he'd said, tossing me the keys to the Civic. "Just don't ask where the plates came from." I didn't. Grateful for wheels, even if the heater sputtered and the seats smelled like old cigarettes. I'd park it in empty lots, praying it wouldn't get towed, and code on my laptop till the battery died. One night, a cop, Officer Reyes, young with a buzz cut and a flashlight that blinded me, rapped on the window. "You can't sleep here," he said, voice clipped. I stammered, "Just resting," and he sighed, letting me off with a warning. "Find a shelter, kid," he muttered, walking away. I didn't. Pride or fear kept me out. I don't know which. I met Leah then, a barista at the coffee shop near the library. She was 20, sharp-tongued, with dyed purple hair and a nose ring, always sketching in a notebook between pores. I'd nurse a 99-cent coffee for hours, coding on my laptop, and she'd slide me free refills. "You look like crap," she'd say, smirking, but her eyes were soft. We'd talk about her art, my projects, the nowhere lives we were escaping. One night she caught me counting change for a muffin, my stomach audibly rumbling. "Here," she said, tossing me one from the day-olds. "Don't starve, nerd." I mumbled thanks, cheeks hot, and she grinned. "Pay me back when you're some tech hotshot." It was the closest thing to friendship I had then. I still called home, chasing ghosts. "It's Ethan," I'd say into the payphone, voice small, coins clinking. Mom'd pick up, distracted. "Oh, hi, Ethan. Sophie's got a recital tomorrow, little ballerina." Dad, if he answered, was gruff. "She's starting preschool soon. Big deal." I'd try. Told them I was taking night classes at community college, coding for cash. "That's nice," Mom'd say, then click. They never asked if I was okay where I slept. Once I called from a shelter phone. I'd caved one freezing night and got a dead tone. They'd changed numbers, no heads up. I stood there, wind cutting through my jacket, feeling the last thread snap. But I didn't break completely. I learned fast. Python, JavaScript, anything I could devour on library PCs. I'd code during 7-Eleven breaks, hunched over my phone, screen glow lighting my tired face. A startup took me on, Pixel Wave, a scrappy outfit run by a guy named Vic, all beard and ambition. "Your portfolio's rough, but you've got grit," he said, hiring me as a junior dev. The pay was low, but I rented a studio, peeling paint, a mattress on the floor, and cried that first night, safe at last. I worked 70-hour weeks, learning cloud systems, databases, anything they threw at me. Vic saw it, handed me small projects. "You're a machine, Carver," he'd say, clapping my back. I lived on that. 7 years ago, the big break hit. A Silicon Valley giant, Nexlify, spotted my open source work. 6 interviews, sweaty, brutal coding tests, landed me an offer that flipped my life. Now, I lead a team, live in a San Francisco high-rise with a bay view, savings stacking up. Sarah, my girlfriend, a graphic designer with green eyes and a fierce streak, keeps me grounded. "You're a survivor," she says, kissing my forehead. Jake, still my rock, nods over beers. "You made it, man." I thought I had, till Dad's call. "Sophie's in trouble," he said, voice frayed. "Skipping school, stealing, drugs. Rehab's failed 3 times. We're broke. 200 grand gone. House remortgaged. We need you." Mom sobbed on. "Family sticks together, Ethan. Save her." I laughed, rage boiling. "Family? You dumped me," they begged. I hung up, Sophie's toddler face, those big eyes, haunting me. Sarah said, They don't deserve you, Jake countered. Sophie's not them. Maybe help her direct. I met them at a coffee shop. Dad gray, Mom hollow. She's worse, Dad said. Gone days, police know her. Mom cried. We sold the house, help us. I refused. They raged, guilt-tripping. Sophie called a week later, polite then furious. You left me, she screamed. They'd lied. She thought I'd abandoned her. Months later, they're bankrupt. Sophie's with a friend's family. They called again, desperate. We're done, Dad said, his voice a hollow rasp, like the last breath of a dying engine. She's gone. She's 13, living with people who don't care. I stood in my kitchen, gripping the counter, the San Francisco skyline glittering outside my window, a world away from their mess. Why no police? I asked, my tone sharp, cutting through the static. Mom's reply was a whisper, dead and flat. We can't. They blamed me, Dad's voice rising. If you'd helped, none of this would have happened, I snapped, fury boiling over. This is your mess. You kicked me out, ignored me, lost her. Don't put this on me. Silence stretched. Then Mom spoke, soft and broken. We're sorry, Ethan. We should have done better. It was too late. Their apology a faint echo against 17 years of neglect. I hung up, my chest a tangle of pity, anger, and a strange cold relief. I thought that was the end. But 2 nights ago, my phone buzzed, shattering the quiet. I was sprawled on my couch, Sarah sketching beside me, the hum of the city outside a steady lullaby. An unknown number flashed on the screen. I answered, cautious. Hello? Sophie's voice burst through, high, panicked, trembling. Ethan, I need you. They're after me. Static crackled, then the line went dead. My heart stopped, a jolt of ice shooting through me. Who's they? I sat there, phone limp in my hand, her words looping in my skull. Sarah looked up, pencil pausing mid-line. Who was that? She asked, her green eyes narrowing. Sophie, I said, voice shaky. She's in trouble. Said someone's after her, then it cut out. Sarah dropped her sketch pad, face hardening. Could be a trick. Your parents pulling strings again. I shook my head, pulse racing. It didn't sound like that. She was scared, really scared. I tried calling back, voicemail, a robotic drone. No name, no clue. I paced, the hardwood cold under my feet, Sophie's toddler face flashing in my mind, those wide eyes watching me leave 17 years ago. I couldn't shake it. I called Jake, my fingers fumbling the keys. He answered, groggy, past midnight. Dude, what's wrong? His voice was thick, pulling him from sleep. Sophie just called, I said, words spilling fast. Said she's in danger. They're after me, then nothing. He paused, then, You sure it's her? I wasn't. Could have been anyone. But that fear felt too raw to fake. I don't know, I admitted, but I can't ignore it. He sighed, bed sheets rustling. Man, you've been through enough. But if she's really in deep, check it. Just be smart about it. Next morning I called Vic, my old boss from Pixelwave, a tech wizard with shady contacts. Carver, my man, he answered, all cheer. What's up? I cut to it. Need a trace on a number. Sophie called. Might be bad. His tone shifted. All business. Text it to me. I've got a guy. Off-the-record stuff. Give me a few hours. I sent it, then sat at my desk, staring at a screen of code I couldn't read, my team buzzing around me. Maya, my junior dev, poked her head in. Buzz cut, sharp eyes. You good, Ethan? You're pale. I forced a grin. Just tired. Family crap. She nodded, unconvinced, and left me to my spinning thoughts. Vic called back by noon. Burner phone, he said, voice low. Last pinged in Oakland, near the docks. Sketchy spot. Still active, but no guarantees. Oakland, an hour away, a gritty maze of warehouses and trouble. My stomach sank. Sophie, 13, tangled up there? Thanks, Vic, I said, grabbing my jacket. Sarah walked in as I pulled on my boots, her arms crossed. You're going, aren't you? She said, not a question. Yeah, I replied, meeting her gaze. She's scared, Sarah. I have to know. She stepped closer, fierce. Then I'm with you. No way you're doing this solo. We drove in my Civic, the same rust bucket from years ago, still limping along, her hand tight on mine, headlights slicing through the fog. Oakland's docks loomed ahead, rusted fences, sodium lights casting long shadows, the air thick with salt and oil. I parked near a busted payphone, the burner's last ping a vague radius on Vic's map. "This feels off," Sarah muttered, scanning the empty street. "What's the plan?" I exhaled, nerves jangling. "Find her, or someone who knows her." We stepped out, the wind biting, my phone clutched like a lifeline. A figure emerged from the shadows. A kid, maybe 16, in a hoodie too big for him, hands jammed in his pockets. "You lost?" he called, voice rough. I tensed, but kept it steady. "Looking for a girl, 13, blonde, Sophie. She's in trouble." He smirked, eyes flicking to Sarah, then back. "Lots of girls in trouble round here. Got cash?" I pulled a 20 from my wallet, holding it up. He snatched it, nodding toward a warehouse. "Saw a chick like that last night, running with some punks. In there, maybe." He bolted before I could ask more. The warehouse door creaked as I pushed it open. Sarah behind me, her breath quick. Inside was dim, crates stacked high, the stink of damp wood and something sour. Voices echoed, low and urgent. I crept forward, heart hammering, and saw her, Sophie, hunched in a corner, blonde hair tangled, a backpack at her feet. Two guys loomed over her, older, 20s, one with a shaved head and a scar, the other twitchy, pacing. "You owe us, kid," Scarface growled, kicking her bag. "Where's the stuff?" Sophie shrank back, voice small. "I don't have it, I swear." I stepped out, adrenaline surging. "Sophie!" I shouted. She whipped around, eyes wide, fear, then recognition. "Ethan?" The guys turned, Scarface sneering. "Who the hell are you?" I squared up, fists clenched. "Her brother. Back off." Twitchy laughed, pulling a knife, small, glinting. "Wrong move, hero." Sarah grabbed my arm, whispering, "We need to go, now." But Sophie bolted toward me, sobbing, and I caught her, shoving her behind us. "Run!" I yelled as Twitchy lunged. We sprinted, Sophie stumbling, Sarah pulling her along, Scarface's curses chasing us. The Civic roared to life, tires screeching as I floored it, Oakland shrinking in the rear view. Sophie huddled in the back, shaking, her breath ragged. "They wanted drugs," she mumbled, tears streaking her dirt-smudged face. "I didn't know. I just took what they gave me." I gripped the wheel, anger and relief crashing together. "You're safe now," I said, though I wasn't sure. Back at my place, Sarah made tea while Sophie sat on my couch, clutching a blanket. "Mom and Dad said you hated me," she whispered, eyes down. "That you left 'cause of me." I knelt, voice soft. "They lied, Soph. They kicked me out. I never wanted to leave you." She looked up, tears spilling. "I screwed up, Ethan. I don't know how to fix it." I hugged her, her thin frame trembling against me. "We'll figure it out," I said, meaning it. Next day I called child services. Anonymous tip, no details. They took her in, promising help, not jail. Dad called once more, voice frail. "She's gone again?" I cut him off. "She's safe. That's all you get." I hung up, done. Sarah squeezed my hand. "You did enough." Jake, over beers later, nodded. "You saved her, man. Rest is on her." I stand at my window now, the bay sparkling below, a quiet moment after the storm. Sophie's out there, maybe healing, maybe not, and I've done what I could. Looking back, this whole mess taught me something hard but real. Family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up when you're down, not the ones who push you out and pull you back when it suits them. My parents spent years treating me like a shadow, then expected me to light their way out of the dark they built. Sophie didn't ask for their chaos, but she got caught in it, and I couldn't just watch her drown. Not because I owed her, but because I know what it's like to be left sinking. I fought for my life, clawing up from nothing, and that taught me boundaries aren't selfish, they're survival. I gave her a hand, not my whole world, and that's the line I've learned to draw. Life's messy. Sometimes you're the kid with nowhere to go. Sometimes you're the one deciding who gets a piece of what you've built. I don't have all the answers, but I know this. You don't have to carry someone else's wreckage to prove you're good. My parents' apologies came too late to fix what they broke, and Sophie's path is hers now. I can't walk it for her. Maybe that's the toughest lesson. Letting go doesn't mean you don't care. It means you trust the world to sort itself out, even when it hurts to watch. So here's my question to you. Yeah, you reading this. What would you have done? Would you have gone to Oakland, risked it all for a sister you barely knew, or would you have hung up that first call and kept your distance? I've lived this story, and I'm still not sure I got it right. Drop your thoughts below. Tell me your take, your own stories. Have you ever had to choose between saving someone and saving yourself? Let's talk about it. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't. There's more where this came from, real stuff that doesn't pull punches. And ring that notification bell so you don't miss the next one. I've bared my soul here. Now it's your turn.